Welcome to this episode. Today we are talking to this lady. She's actually happens to be my former boss. I left CREEC and I'm back because this is where I developed my passion for clean cooking. And I thought that maybe I should come back and then catch up with them and see where they are now. And also to enlighten the viewers about what CREEC does and why they do what they do. So please welcome with me.
Agnes Naluwagga. I work with the Center for Research in Energy and Energy Conservation, and it's based at Makerere University, and I coordinate activities of the Regional Testing and Knowledge Center.
So tell us about your role at the center and why CREEC is doing this as a stove testing center. What do you do here?
So at CREEC we do many different activities, but with a focus on enhancing access to modern types of energy. So looking at household energy, energy for lighting, energy for cooking, energy efficiency, and basically also energy entrepreneurship.
Okay.
So those are the thematic areas of CREEC, and the focus is how do we enhance access to all these modern types of energy for the general public, so people are able to use what's available, but also what's more efficient. And out of these, with a focus on energy for household use, but also energy, let's say, for productive use, we're also focusing on energy testing services.
Okay.
And in line with energy testing services, we're looking at the solar component, but also at the cooking component, the cookstoves. So one of my key responsibilities at CREEC is to ensure that the angle of cooking energy, the quality of the stoves or appliances that we use for cooking in the country, that the quality is actually good.
Okay.
So what CREEC does under the Regional Testing and Knowledge Center section of CREEC, we do a lot of work around testing performance of these cookstoves.
Okay.
So over the years, let's say way back from 2010, there's been a lot of testing of the different cookstoves that people commonly use for cooking. Definitely there's been a lot of focus on the biomass cookstoves, but over the years, maybe more recently, we've seen people starting to use different types of cookstoves, with definitely biomass being a lot of the stoves that are still commonly in use. But we are also seeing the emergence of e-cooking appliances, EPCs, induction cookers, still yet to be fully uptaken, but that's also another angle. We are seeing many people using gas stoves.
Okay.
There's an interest also in liquid stoves like ethanol stoves, biogas stoves. So we are seeing a whole range of different technologies that are coming up. We have the post-drafting gasifier stove. So we are moving more from, let's say, people focusing so much on firewood and charcoal stoves, which we commonly use in Uganda. We're seeing more uptake of different cooking technologies.
Yeah.
But we also know that biomass is one of those technologies that is here, and it's replicable, like you can continuously use it, but how do you continuously improve the technologies that we have on market to be able to burn more efficiently, but also more cleaner whilst using biomass?
Okay.
So all the different technologies have a role to play. I wouldn't say let's focus so much on, let's say, gas stoves and e-cooking and, let's say, ethanol liquid stoves. All the different technologies have a market segment and a role that they can play. So you need to understand how to improve the performance, the quality of the stoves on the market. Are they safe for the users? Because many of these are commonly used in our households.
Let's talk about stove testing itself. What kinds of tests are you doing at CREEC specifically? Do you follow a certain procedure? How do you go about testing? And why should someone test cookstoves? And who is your target market? Like, whom do you test stoves for?
Okay. With cookstove testing, You're looking at laboratory tests, but also field-based tests, because you don't want to just focus on what's the best way a stove can perform. Yeah. So which is what you do in the laboratory. It gives you the ideal condition. So you're looking at how efficient is the stove, how well does it translate the fuel it's using into the cooking task. Yeah. Is it 90% efficient, like all the fuel you put in is just for the cooking task and it's not lost to the environment?
Yeah.
Is it clean burning, for example, in terms of emissions? We look at the emissions aspect. How much particulate matter is the stove emitting? You know, those small particles that can be harmful to your health.
Yep.
We're looking at carbon monoxide. For example, some of the stoves will emit carbon monoxide. It's a gas that you can't see, but it's very dangerous to a person's health, because you know what you can't see can easily kill you, because you can't see, you can't smell, and that's what CO does. That's what carbon monoxide does. So that's the emissions aspect. We also look at the safety of the stove. How safe is it to the user? Does it get so hot? Because you know, when you're cooking in a kitchen, you have kids all over the place. Like if you touch, are you able to touch and not get burnt? Or it's safe? Does it have sharp corners, sharp edges? You know, when you're walking around and your cloth just sticks onto the stove. There's so many different aspects that you look at when it comes to the safety of the stove. There's also the aspect of durability. You know, there are stoves which you'll use, let's say, for 3 months and it's gone. So the durability of the stove, how long can a stove stay on the market? But so as you look at those different parameters that are, let's say, lab-based, but you want to look at the usability of the stove. Because with usability, if it's usable for our daily needs, what people commonly cook, then you're likely to see higher adoption. The adoption rates will increase, because if I want a stove to mingle my kalo or kosho, it should be that it should serve the purpose, it's sturdy enough and all that. So there are those aspects that will define whether I will continuously use that stove because it meets my needs, or whether I will, even if I've been given the stove, whether I'll continue using it or not. So the usability aspects are things that you can test while working closely with the users, understanding what is it that they need, what type of stove do they need to address their everyday needs. So we normally recommend, especially manufacturers, that even as we test, when they're developing their stoves, it shouldn't be like you sit and just think of what should my stove
look like,
or I want to design it to be very high performing. But have you understood where your target market is? What is it that they want, and they want it for what purposes? So cause those once you design something and put it on market and it addresses the need of the customer, you're likely to make more sales, and you're likely to have it being adopted longer. So
and stay in the use for some good time.
So there are many aspects that we really look at. So definitely, like you asked, what's our target market? Our target market is basically one of our focus areas is definitely the manufacturer or suppliers of stoves, but we also work closely with ministries, UNBS, because you see, the whole point is quality. What is it that you have on market? Is it a quality product? Are people using safe appliances? And all that. And you want to work with manufacturers or suppliers to continuously develop their products, so they are not kicked out of the market by all the other stoves that come in that are better. So they shouldn't stay at status quo. They should keep.
And there are some standards and procedures that are used to test these cook stoves to ensure that your process of testing is authentic, it is accurate, and it's reliable. And I understand CREEC has done some bit of ISO certification process. Tell us a bit about ISO certification, how standardization of these protocols come into play, and how they help the sector to.
So I would say, for one, I would start with the test methods before I go to the ISO. So when we are testing, you want to ensure that you're using methods that have been tested, the test methods. So they're standards. Right now, for most of, let's say, the biomass stoves, there's the ISO test method that we are currently using. And it defines all the different parameters I've talked about. and this is used widely. So that's one of the main methods that we are using to actually assess the stoves. So the team is trained and are competent about doing these tests. And it's CREEC is one of the few laboratories in the region that are actually competent in terms of testing in line with these new ISO test methods.
In the region, we're talking about East Africa or Africa?
Well, East Africa and Africa, because we've also had a chance to even work with other testing centers as far as Sierra Leone, Ghana, to actually train them on, to work with them and support them in growing their labs and their teams to actually get more competent when it comes to some of these the testing. So one of the things that we do, I talked about the test methods, but one of the things that has helped us continuously grow, continuous improvement, is the fact that way back 2014, 2015, we decided to go the route of ISO 17025. It's a laboratory quality management system. And the idea is, how do we ensure consistency and growth in terms of, are we certain about our testing, the quality of results and all that. So that's a journey we've walked for quite a while, and we are continuously working towards improving that. What are our standard operating procedures? What are the quality process to ensure that we have a quality and less complaints from our clientele, because we are assured of what we have tested. And that's a journey we've worked, and we have a close collaboration with the Uganda National Bureau of Standards, because it audits us on an annual basis and renews our certification to be able to actually test on their behalf. So we are part of the laboratory recognition scheme for Uganda, but also for East Africa. So we have that confidence that, you know, if an appliance comes into the lab, you can actually track everything about it, and you're more certain about if there's a complaint, how do you handle all those things. So that's one thing that has given us more confidence in terms of the quality process, but also working closely, like in terms of networks and partnerships, working closely with other labs. We've worked closely with EPA.
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 Yeah.
Yes. It's the, what's it called?
Environmental Protection Agency of the United States.
Yes, we've really worked so closely, for example, just to kind of grow, because they've been in this testing,
for quite a long
testing
time.
process with Colorado State University, with the Provincial Research Center. They've been in that process of, you know, stop testing and all that, and also closely working with the Clean Cooking Alliance, basically in terms of standards and test methods development. So there's like a whole network of different regional testing and knowledge centers, both outside of Uganda, but also within, outside of Africa, but also within Africa. We've worked closely with Kirdi, it's Kenya, with Ghana, with Sierra Leone, like different, you have this network, because you need to share your challenges and see how to work together to improve and grow and address some of the challenges that you continuously see as we work towards understanding the performance of stores.
That's really well elaborated. And I want to take you a little bit back about the standards and the certification and the ISOs and all that. I believe that after testing, you'd want to have the best and the right product on the market. So I'd like to ask you something about how, is there a challenge? Because I've seen even the stoves that have not gone through the testing process are right there on the market. How is that affecting the sector, and like how best can that be improved? And I believe there were standards that were developed for cookstoves to be put on the market. They have to be certified and all that. And I also understand that you offer certification for people that have gone through the testing process. How do these two align on the market and also from the lab?
So what we currently have also, because UNBS, the Uganda National Bureau of Standards, is mandated to basically ensure quality products on the market. So our role as CREEC is to support that process in terms of testing the products and issuing the certificate that, okay, I have a tested product. But right now, we have a standard for cooking appliances for Uganda. but right now it's a voluntary standard. It's not yet mandatory.
Yeah.
So like, since it's voluntary, it's not yet at that point that if they found you selling your stove on the market, they're going to penalize you because it doesn't have the standardization mark from UNBS. But what it's also because UNBS is working towards encouraging manufacturers to grow their products, I mean to improve them, and so the voluntary period is also to give them time to improve and catch up, and then I'm not certain at what point they'll make it mandatory, but this grace period has been on for a while, so I believe not very far in the near future, probably I don't know when, they'll probably make it mandatory. So that means to be able to sell a stove on the market, it must be certified, and you must be certified by UN.
You're going to excuse me a bit because I've remembered something on the standards and testing procedures. I believe CREEC before used to do a lot of biomass cookstoves, but now as the trends change, we are now shifting to different clean cooking technologies, including LPG is high on the promotional strategy right now. We have electric pressure cookers, but do we have any testing protocols now in place already that you guys follow to test these appliances?
So for some, like I said, the ISO has a scope of what you can test. The ISO 1986, I hope I'm saying it correct, has a scope of what stoves can be tested in that, but it doesn't cover the entire scope of all cooking appliances. For example, it doesn't have EPCs, so you can't test EPCs using the ISO test method, but it covers all the different parameters. So right now, one of the things that has continuously come up is, what's the gap? What are the gaps in terms of what standards are missing, or what standards can be adopted for Uganda to actually be used to test some of these appliances? So right now, because there's been an increased interest in terms of testing of EPCs, because we are starting to see an increasing trend, is that we have what we are using currently is the globally test method for EPCs. It's not yet, I would say it's not an ISO. ISO is that the body that really deals with standards, so it's not yet in that format. But these are all processes, because also what UNBS will eventually do is, how do you get like the methods that are currently in place, you review them, maybe adopt or adapt them, that process. So they are test methods, but I wouldn't say they are already ISO in the category of ISO or adopted in Uganda. But there are some methods we're using. But that's part of the role or place of UNBS. When there's a gap, maybe the stakeholders like us or ministry or any stakeholders identifies, we need to further develop these, then that process starts. And I know in the background there's a bit of some of that process that's in the pipeline, and hopefully we'll see a lot of these things being clearly defined.
From your testing experiences, could you please tell me some of your test findings? How are the trends currently? I know the sector is now talking a lot about high-tier clean cook stoves. What are the trends now, and what are your key findings from the testing in terms of improvement? Because I know we are trying to shift to raise the bar now.
So there's a lot of talk about the high-tier performing stoves. High-tier is basically the stoves that are up there. But when you also look at that categorization of high-tier, you're basically looking at electric cooking, LPG, because it's also looking so much at clean, like no emissions, ethanol, and all that. So there's like a special category of those stoves, and we're starting to see people trying to get on and have more of these products in. But I think for me, in terms of biomass, you're seeing maybe the forced draft stores, like the ones which have the forced fan, and the ones which are trying to get into that high tier for biomass. We've seen a lot of, like for example, more interest in checking the performance of these technologies, because I think right now there's a lot of funding driven towards high tier performing stores. But I've also noted that most of when you look at the local local space for Uganda.
Yeah.
Most of the stoves that are being tested, I mean the high tier, many of them are like stoves that are coming from without Uganda, outside of Uganda. So we're also looking, I feel like many times we need to strike a balance.
Yeah.
I know there's many times we're doing things that are driven by funding. Where's the funding coming from?
Yeah.
And you know, a lot of money is pushed into a particular technology. But then maybe I'm trying to be even-headed. Is this technology going to serve the need of the entire population?
Yeah.
Or should we start looking at what is it that the different market segments, the different populations, what is it that they need?
Yeah.
There's a space for the high tier, like really high tier, like EPCs can target this particular market. But then there's also the people that are probably not going to use these EPCs or the LPGs. There's a whole lot of dynamics around these technologies, the supply, what's the fuel supply, what are the logistical issues around that. So even with the drive to do high tier, there should be an understanding of what's the market segment. Okay. Target that market segment, exhaustive if possible, but it shouldn't be that the other market segments are actually left out. You need to look at, okay, these ones are not yet high tier. How do we get them to improve? They may not get to your tier 5 and EDC, but what is it that can be done to get them to some level, but also support the wider market segments that are not yet there. So I feel like that needs to be leveled out, because otherwise the current trends are part of the testing team and seeing, understanding what the needs of the people are, what you see on the market, what the demands are when you walk out into communities and understand what their needs are.
So speaking of communities, because I understand CREEC doesn't only stop at testing these stoves in the lab, you also do in the field. And also you've been part of very many different research work that you have published and been part of. And also you've been part of promotions, exhibitions, awareness campaigns. Tell us a little bit on how your work impacts the communities that these cookstoves serve.
Okay. Yeah, so one of the things, maybe at a general level, but also at a personal level. At first I used to wonder, okay, I'm cookstoves. I used to work in the electricity sector before, we were working at dams. Now I'm in cookstoves. I'm like, okay, what am I exactly doing? And then I think it eventually hit. You know, when you're dealing with cooking, it's an aspect that touches everyone. It doesn't matter what category you are, how rich you are, how poor you are. It's something that's a basic need. It's a basic requirement.
Yes, it is.
And I realized that the work we do actually reaches so many different people.
Okay. Like
if we don't do it right, then you're affecting so many different people. So that gave me an appreciation, and I stopped looking at it as, this thing, you're touching charcoal, you're doing what, like it just gave me a rich appreciation, because you realize it is touching even the people you don't meet, it is touching so many different people. So I appreciate that about the work we do in terms of ensuring that whatever is done, because it's going to go to so many different households, so many different communities, is it addressing their needs?
If it leaves your lab, when it is counterfeit or with poor performance, it affects a long chain of
Exactly. And that's why you have to ensure that your quality system, someone shouldn't just give you a call and say, oh, I need my stove to pass. And you're like, oh yeah, let's sign it off. No, because the moment you do that and they get funding or they're able to do this, like to supply so many stoves on the market, imagine what you're doing to people if you have signed off a stove that is wrong, that is not actually a good stove. So you're constantly aware that whatever you're doing is going to affect so many millions. There are times we've gone to communities and you know you're far away in a very, let's say, not a remote place, but maybe you meet someone and they tell you, I live in this place, like you know that it's not an urban area. Sometimes you imagine fuel issues are in urban areas, but someone is telling you they live in a really rural community, but they are situations where people actually cooking with kavera. You get what I mean? Like they do not have, we imagine that there's wood, that they can pick wood at any point, but there are some areas where that is also not there. So they are using whatever they can find. If they find a kavera or a plastic, they'll cook with that.
Wow.
then you realize that, oh, there's a lot more that you can do. Because
Yeah.
you know, all those fumes, if someone decides to cook with that, it's going to affect their,
their health. And
but then you have the knowledge of, you can actually teach someone to make use of, let's say, the waste they have, leaves or whatever, to make briquettes, and they can use that to cook. So you realize that you have a lot of information, a lot of knowledge to actually improve, even if you're not taking them to the high tier store, but you're actually getting them to make use of what's available in their community, what they have readily available to them to actually improve their cooking experience, improve their livelihood. So
from this discussion, that very question that you've just answered, I have two things that I would want you to elaborate about. One is, how does CREEC ensure the testing results, the accuracy and the consistency? I know you talked about the standards, the ISO, but at a personal level, do you feel like maybe at a certain point, do people call and say, you know, I have a funding, I need my stove tested, tomorrow I need this very same result? Do those things ever come to you, and how do you handle them? And then another thing, you mentioned something about fuels. Are you doing anything about fuels as well?
Okay. Yeah, so we live in a very practical world that you'll get many different calls. So I won't say that such calls won't come. They will come in form of calls, in form of people that will walk in, and it's a team. So it's a team, and you know, they will talk to anyone. I can promise them anything, or my colleague can promise them anything. But what we've tried to do, yes, definitely the ISO process helps us. Because you know, if I get this is the process that we follow. So it helps us in structuring. But overall, it gets also down to the competence of that team. Because I won't be in the same space like all the time. Like if I'm not there, like you can't control everything. So that process, the structuring helps you. But then also ensuring that you have a competent team that is also understands the value of what we are doing as a team. And integrity is really key, because I can do just anything. I can just sign it off, and well, who will know? Maybe it comes out later. So it's also that cohesion as a team in terms of integrity. And if there's a complaint that comes, because sometimes maybe they'll be like, but you guys did this. There's a process. Okay, this has come through. So what went wrong? What is it what was the root cause of why this happened, and what can we do better to ensure that we do not have a repeat of this scenario? So I think it's a combination of the ISO process, the structures,
so
competence, integrity, but also how do you handle when some of those issues pop through? How do you handle?
Do you have like a verification process to see if these results have left the lab? Do you have someone that goes through them? Do you have like
so we have wanted to just show our process. So we have, it's like, just think about like the project management cycle. You have initiation, you have preparation, then you have the execution stage, then you have the reporting and review, and then you have the closeout. What are the things you do? So we've defined all those steps in terms of what happens at each stage. How do you verify? Once the data is entered, at an approved technician should review. If technician A does the testing, the other one needs to look through and check and approve that they are okay. When the reporting is done, is it reviewed? Is it reported? And also the other thing that helps us is, I mentioned that UNBS also audits us on an annual basis. Basically checking our quality management system. And they will actually come and engage the technical person and go through. They'll just choose a random stove or a random whatever. Say, okay, let's start at the beginning. What happened when it was recorded? You go through that process. You go through the test data. You go through the reports. You go up to the end of when it was submitted. And what they are checking is, what is that process like? So with that, because we just recently completed one, I think it was beginning of May. We just completed a UNB, an audit, basically to check our process. We got a few NCs which we are correcting, and then we submit them back to them, and they check and see, then they will they renew the process. So we have the internal processes, but then we also have like an external auditor who checks us, and
That's perfect. Quickly, we go to fuel testing
And
for
then
like a
maybe
minute.
just to add, there's also the interlaboratory tests.
Oh, yeah.
To check the competence, like how well are you doing with other labs. So basically you test the same sample, the same fuel, you test it and it's tested in another lab. The one we completed more recently, a couple of months ago, was testing with all the different labs, with Aprovecho, with Curie. Like, actually there were, I think, a total of about 12 labs that participated. And you're basically testing the same thing and comparing yourselves against one another to see how
And
are you
how
doing.
was that to you? Like, how is CREEC? Are those still called round robin tests?
Yes, they're round robin tests, but in the ISO ones, it's normally interlaboratory testing.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, the other one is round robin. So it's also to check and gauge yourselves. Okay, where are we? Are we like those ends? Are you at least? Is it? Are you performing averagely? Or so it gives you a gauge and helps you to know how to improve. Yes,
that's perfect. So quickly we go through your fuel testing work. If you do fuel testing, and we see how.
So with fuel tests, one of the things we really want to do, because with stove testing, we want stove testing, especially biomass LPG. The equipment is good. Right now, for electric cooking, we have something we developed, which we are using, but we want to upgrade it better to be able to fully do all the tests related to cooking with electricity. But also the other thing that we really hope to be able to raise money to do is the full range of fuel testing. Because right now we work in partnership with Makerere, the Department of Mechanical and Agriculture sometimes to basically do if we really need to do fuel testing. So we don't even cover that under our ISO scope, our ISO 17025 scope, because it's not something we directly control. So we work closely with the Department of Mechanical Engineering. But the hope is to basically
which tests again? Which tests?
The fuel tests.
And which properties, for example?
Like calorific value, fuel moisture content we can to a certain extent, but not fully. So it's like a certain extent, but not fuel. So it's the physical parameters and the chemical parameters.
Like the calorific value, the ash content, the carbon content.
Yes, things like
Okay. All right, that's perfect. So quickly, tell us about maybe the CREEC's future initiatives or plans, and maybe are there new projects that are very good that the clean cooking sector should be excited about?
We're looking to work closely with everyone in the sector, and I think for us our hope is we would want to see us CREEC a bit more cohesion within the sector. People working more together, because with that you have consolidated efforts.
Yes.
And it's easy to work together than work against one another. And we'll see more growth in the sector. And as CREEC, that's what we envision, working closely with the different sectors.
Yes.
I mean, with the different players. And I'm grateful that UNAC is really endeavoring to play this role. So for us, those partnerships are key. Work together more closely with UNAC, because it tries to bring together all these different players. Look at aspects of how do you consolidate efforts and work strongly together. So whether it's how to improve the stoves, what are the different challenges we are meeting? Because I would want to be able to see the local stoves actually continuously improve. There are aspects that we've seen that could be improved, but because you have divided efforts, you can't pull efforts or resources together to get this.
That's poor coordination between different umbrellas or associations in the sector, or?
It's a mix of different things, really.
Okay, won't go so much into the politics.
There's a lot of politics.
I think there's a lot of politics there.
And there are a lot of self-interest.
So
people
talking
need
of
to learn to work together and not self-interest.
Speaking of that, let's quickly go through the challenges that CREEC and the stove testing department encounter during this kind of work, and how you overcome them. And
definitely a major challenge. Even I know there'll be like oh, testing is so expensive and all that. That's something that's constantly said. But the truth is, if you really, you've experienced what testing really means. And now with the ISO methods, it's even more rigorous, more quality controls, more calibrations required. Like, there's so much that goes in there. And
that people do not see.
They do not see.
And then they look at the final figure.
Exactly.
Yes.
And then even that time you put in, at times you'll get people who come and say, I want my results tomorrow, or in a day or two. And it's not possible because with testing, you can't do that. It takes time. So there are all those challenges, like someone wants their work to be done, and you're like, it's not possible. Sometimes you have to let people go and maybe find another way, because you don't want to start giving them fake stuff because a person wants a test certificate to submit, and yet it's been they've come a little bit too late. And
so that's a challenge on pricing. Any other challenge?
So there's pricing, there is the time aspect,
yes,
lack of
time
understanding
consuming.
of what it takes.
The procedure and the whole process.
Yes, and what it takes. But then also you really need to be able to maintain the team. So there's lack of willingness to pay for the services.
So then, if
how do you sustain the center? Because it's not funded by let's say government, or like, you basically have to sustain and ensure the team. And remember, to be a good tester, it takes time. You know that over time, because you've been. It takes time. It's not a one-day thing or a one-year thing. It takes time. So like you want to ensure, like, you're continuously building capacity of the other team members, like the sustainability, but then you want also your team to want to be in this thing, because it doesn't look like a very clean job. It's a lot of self-sacrifice.
That's right.
So those are some of the struggles that you find. And and like
so
it's
so how can someone support CREEC?
Give us work and pay. Don't make it too hard, because we know what our potential is. We know what we can do. We know that we do quality work. We know that we have the capacity and expertise to do it. And I feel like many times we have proved that. Not I feel, I know. So come, walk in here. Let's work together to improve stuff, but also the willingness to pay and So as we conclude, do you have any last words? The message for the sector, the manufacturers, the users? Can a user look at a stove on the market and say, this is a stove that I can trust, it has gone through CREEC? Any last comments or message for the sector? And so last comments. First, thank you, Nelson, for coming back.
Thank you so much
for
having
us.
me.
We appreciate you. I know this has been long overdue. But thank you for insisting. We're not so good at marketing ourselves. We kind of keep cooking and not talking about ourselves. So thank you. And to the sector, I think my key message is really, let's work together. Like, work together. Like, when you work together, nothing is so hard. You can even raise money to support ourselves locally. As the sector, without relying so much on waiting for funds to come in. So if we can have that cohesion and people realizing that we have so much when we work together. A bundle of 3 is not easily broken, but if we are alone, then there's nothing you can do. You're easily broken and all that. But if people come together,
we can do more.
I don't think there's nothing that can defeat us. There's anything that can defeat us. So for me, that's the message.
Thank you so much. So this was Agnes. She's my former boss, and I'm very happy that she gave me an opportunity to talk to her and to catch up with her on how they have been doing work here at CREEC. I'm very lucky to have gone through the doors of CREEC. This is where I got passion to do photography and videography, and I realized the sector had a challenge on awareness. And I said, this can't continue. Let me start an organization called Green Lens, and then I can tell the story. So if I know about clean cooking, I think I can tell a story better than someone who does not know anything about it. So I think I worked with CREEC for like 5 years, and every time I come back, I'm always welcome. and I appreciate that about you.
Yeah.
And sometimes whenever I have a project on clean cooking, these are the guys that I talk to first, and they have been supportive. So thank you so much, CREEC, and thank you for maintaining the center. You're doing much bigger work these days, and we appreciate you for supporting the clean cooking sector. And all the viewers, please, you can always come to CREEC. You're going to tell them where to find CREEC. You can walk. CREEC is a very open place.
Yeah.
You can walk in anytime and say, I want to see clean cooking. I want to learn about clean cooking. So please tell them where to find you as we say,
Okay.
as we conclude.
So you can find us on our different social media pages. I think we have all the different social media pages.
I'll
I
put
think
them
that's-
in the
exactly.
description.
Please put them there.
Yeah.
If you can't come here, but we are located at the College of Engineering, Design, Art and Technology in Makerere University. It's easier to access from the Sapo Lokagwa
Road.
gate. And yeah, we are located somewhere near the old building of Sedat.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Agnes, and it's been a pleasure having you. Until next time, thank you.